Welcome to the Film Podcast. In 2021, I saw a movie called The Worst Person in the World. It was a Norwegian movie directed by Joachim Trier. It was the last part of what's called the Oslo trilogy, but itself is a movie worth seeking out on its own. Deep, philosophical, frustrating, and amazing. It's made me excited about its director and its writer's newest work, which I've just seen. So is it any good? And what does it all mean? This is the definition of the term sentimental value. Now I'm going to have to read it, so here we go. The emotional worth of an object based on its personal history or association with a person, place, or memory. And I think that's important in talking about this movie, because the very definition of that phrase is exactly what this movie is. And I know that might sound obvious, but I mean, wow. It's called sentimental value, and it's very much that definition. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get out of here. Let's talk about sentimental value because, well, we've got to. We've got to. It's early on New Year's Day, and I'm here watching Sentimental Value. I thought to myself, the old saying about New Year is start as you mean to go on. So the very first thing I did out in the big wide world is go and see a movie. And that movie was Sentimental Value. And I'm glad I went to see this in the cinema. Again, the whole thing with this channel, go and see stuff on the big screen, well, this is a real example of how that can really enhance an already amazing film. I mean, this is going to be a difficult one to review, really, because I don't want to give away any spoilers. The meaning of it all and the whole sentiment behind it, i.e. the name, is writ large. It's writ large. There are so many themes in this, in some way it becomes a little bit overwhelming. Not in a negative way, in a way that I suppose means you can watch it again and get something else from it. And you can watch it again even and get something else out of it. It's like that magic of storytelling and that magic of cinema itself, of being able to watch something more than once, have a new experience essentially. And sentimental value is very much that. We know what the definition of sentimental value is because we've just read it. But what about the actual experience of the movie itself? What are we dealing with? What is this about? The trailer for this film is doing exactly what a trailer should do. It's giving you a tiny taste of what to expect, but not giving anything away regarding its themes. Nobody flies in this, no buildings fall down, no spaceships land on anything or anyone. There's not even any sharks in it, but the impact it has is more emotional than any of those huge things that happen in those huge big blockbuster movies. The impact it has on you personally is the most important thing about this. And you know, we've all got parents, right? No matter who we are, where we're from, whatever, we've all got parents, obviously. The family that's focused on in this film, all of the characters, they've all got this emotional trauma that they wear on their sleeves, but they don't necessarily say it out loud. It's all in there. The way that the actors play the characters in this, you can see all of that inner bubbling up lava of emotions and everything that just can't come out, that just won't come out. But the trauma is there anyway. The things that we see when the family aren't together are the real emotions, are the real things. And some of the stuff that we learn about the characters as we go along adds to that heat. History repeating itself is a huge theme in this. You know, the sins of the fathers, let's say, coming back in slightly different ways, but overall the same thing. One of the things that struck me about it the most was the fact that I went in there expecting it to just be about one particular person, to just be about one character, learning stuff, dealing with stuff, whatever. There's three main characters in this film, and all of them go through an emotional journey as much as one character would do in any other film. And it's heavy. It's heavy to deal with that. But it's done in such a beautiful way, and it's done in such a realism way, it doesn't become too much. It's always grounded in the place where it is. It's always grounded in where it's set. It's always grounded in the world that it lives in. And that kind of keeps that realism with us. It keeps us grounded as viewers as well. You've got a father, right? And we can call him an absent father. We can say that he is an absent father. He's just gone off and done his own thing at the expense of his 2 daughters and at the expense of his wife, who in this movie, well, we don't really see much of because she dies. Each one of those characters is just as important as the other in terms of the story and in terms of what all this means. I kind of love the fact that it's not focusing on just one person. We've got 3 people to deal with here, which gives us as viewers a little bit of work to do. But it's so well put together that we start to feel the emotions of everybody that we focus on in this film. I've just seen it, and it's all like it's all replaying, and like everything that I see is just amazing. It's amazing. What a way to kick off 2026, by the way. Going to see Sentimental Value stupidly early in the morning. Fantastic. Renate Reinsve. Did I get that right? She plays Nora Borg. You'd say she was the main character in this, and I guess, at a push, I suppose that's correct. This film is a character piece. Those are the films that I love the most. I love diving into a character. I love watching a film and seeing something about a character either growing or not growing or unraveling or you know, whatever happens, I'm in. You know, bring it on. Bring it on. I'm going to draw a weird parallel now. I'm going to say that, like Predator Badlands, the father in this film, Sentimental Value, is painted in pretty much the same way. Predator Badlands has a very tiny bit of generational trauma. Well, so does Sentimental Value. How about that for a tenuous link? How about that? How about that? It's all set in Oslo. It's Norwegian, essentially. There's a little bit of English in there as well, because of one of our other characters, who we'll talk about in a bit. It features a house, and the opening of the film is essentially told from the perspective of an actual bricks and mortar, wooden panelled house. But the words that are spoken, the words that are said from the perspective of the house are just the most beautiful things, the most gorgeous concept, the most gorgeous idea about what a home can mean, not just a house. That's kind of where we are at the beginning of the film. We can connect with the characters via the house itself. Most of the film is set in that house. We see glimpses of the history. You know, we see glimpses of the past, particularly with that family. We spend a lot of time there because it's like a character itself. It's absorbed everything that's happened in it, and it's absorbing everything that's happening in it now. When it comes to a house that's extremely old, that's extremely ancient, if you want to say that, then we are, even if we buy it, we are still only the custodians of that house. Long after we're gone, other people are going to live there, and other people are going to have their own experiences, and other people are going to have their own time in that house. Well, it's the same with before you moved in, before you were part of that house's history. We get to see some of that as well. We get to see some of that generational trauma. We get to see some of that played out in flashbacks. And it's just gorgeous. It's just beautiful, the way that that's done. We kind of pick up the story when Cecil, who is the mother of the 2 girls, she passes away. And the 2 girls are traumatized by this. Obviously, they've lost their mum. It's a horrendous, horrific thing that's happened. And we sort of see the wake, everyone dressed in black, everyone there, the family is there. You can see from the faces of the 2 sisters that something is missing. Somebody's missing, in fact. Fashionably late, the father turns up. He's called Gustav, and he's played by Stellan Skarsgård. He's called Gustav, and he's played by Stellan Skarsgård. He's called Gustav, and he's played by Stellan Skarsgård. He's a film director. He directs films. And he just kind of shows up. He's late. He misses the funeral and misses most of, you know, the in-home wake thing. And you can immediately see that the 2 sisters, they are pissed off by this. But because they are who they are, they don't say anything. And here is where you learn very quickly and very simply about who these characters are and how they deal with things. Just those very simple things. The dad turning up late to his own ex-wife's funeral and not being there to support his daughters through that traumatic time. This is a complicated beast of a film to talk about. It's way, way, way more intricate than the basic start, middle and end thing. It's got so much stuff that weaves in and out of the story. There's loads to cover, there's loads to talk about, there's loads to recommend. It's so low-key, but it's so impactful. It's only like that when it's done right. And I think this film is done absolutely right. All right, so I've pulled over because we can just go through a bit more of this film whilst I can concentrate on what I'm doing, because there's a lot to concentrate on. So as mentioned earlier, you've got Gustav and you've got Cecil. They are the mother and father in this story. In the flashbacks, we see the kids, the two girls, Nora and Agnes, are both sitting together, listening to the arguments, to the fights, to the horror that's happening to the two parents in other parts of the house. And those things, they shock us, right? But it's something that we've all experienced. But some of us have experienced it to worse degrees than others. These fights, this problem that the mum and dad have together is used as an excuse for Gustav to leave and just go off and focus on his own career. That leaves Cecil to just raise the two girls on her own. She lives in the house, again, that house I talked about earlier. This essentially makes Gustav an absent father. The one thing I always hear about absent fathers, there's always excuses from these men that ignore their families, particularly their children, that sort of go off and do their own thing. They only think about themselves. When it's the mother or the woman in this case, and in lots of cases, that has to bring up the children. And everybody suffers because of that. Everyone suffers trauma because of the selfishness and the stupidity and the just plain ignorance of one man's behaviour. And that runs throughout the generations to come, from each of those people that have been affected by this thing. That is another one of the anchors in this film, is part of the subtext, is a broken family. I had a real hard time empathizing with Gustav, with the father, because he is an egomaniac and he is an arrogant man. From the very second that he appears on screen, as I said before, he kind of shows up fashionably late to his ex-wife's wake. And that's kind of all we need to know about that character in terms of who he is. Because no matter what happens throughout the film, he is always that. He is always going to be at that distance between him and his own two remaining daughters. And they know that. But at the same time, their empathy causes the trauma in them because of what their dad is like, how he acts, and how he's so selfish, and how he's so self-absorbed, and how he's so bothered about his own bullshit, basically. The two girls, Nora and Agnes, are central to this story, central to us as viewers, connecting everything together and working our way through this story. Agnes, she works as a historian. Out of the two sisters, she is the one who's got the kind of most normal life. She's got a son and she's got a husband. It's Nora. Nora's the one who is visibly doing the most suffering. And we get to the bottom of all of that during the course of this film. And it's a fascinating thing to see. And it's an amazing thing to see. And it's a heartbreaking thing to see. The reasons why she is the way she is. The parallels that she draws between her and her own father. And that's one of the amazing things about this film, is the fact that it just takes all of that emotion that's buried deep within and sort of funnels it out of the characters into the world of the film. But it does it in such a subtle yet expressive way. Particularly, it's on the face of Nora. That trauma is worn there on her face. But when it comes to her father, there's a resentment there. There's a resentment with both of them. Agnes is much more forgiving. Agnes is much more gentle in her approach to her own father, and gentle in her approach to everything, really. She's the one with the family. She's the one with the husband. She's the one who's done what the dad and what Nora have never done. Later on in the film, there's a scene where Agnes's son, Eric, it's his birthday. Gustav, he's around. He's around, again, because of that event that's happened, but he's around to also oversee what's going to happen to the house. The little boy opens these birthday presents. Gustav gives him a collection of DVDs, which even that says a lot, because DVDs, who has DVDs these days? Not many of us. But it's the movies that he gives him. In one case, he gives him a copy of Irreversible, which, if you've not seen Irreversible, is definitely not for kids. And the other movie that he gives him is a copy of The Piano Teacher, which, again, if you're 8 years old, would be horrifically traumatic to watch, if not a little bit, what the fuck. The Piano Teacher is amazing, by the way. If you've not seen The Piano Teacher, fucking hell. And it goes to prove how out of touch Gustav is, not only with his own daughters and with his own family, but with how to even be father figure, granddad, grandfather to a young boy. He doesn't even know what the correct gifts are to get him. Gustav's career is, well, it's gone to shit, essentially. And it's gone to shit because, well, maybe partly because of who he is and how he treats other people. He decides that now is the time. He's written a script that is based on his own life, that is based on his own past, his own history, and focuses on his mother. That's what he says anyway. He asks Nora if she would play the lead in the film that he wants to direct, in probably his last film. And this is a kind of way of him reaching out to her in the only way he knows how, in the only selfish way he knows how, because he's a film director. He's only bothered about that. He's only bothered about himself and what he can achieve and what he can do. And he thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks that's the thing that will make her love him and respect him the way that he wants her to. He wants her to star in his movie. And he tries to sell it to her in the sense that, you know, you were made for this role. I wrote this film for you. I did this for you. When you think about it that way, you think to yourself, well, okay, that's a really nice thing to do. That's a really special thing to do. But that's not what she is. She's a theatre actress. She acts in theatre. She does not act in film. This is another way of us seeing how self-absorbed the dad really is as a character in this. So quite rightly, she essentially tells him to go F himself. No thanks, I'm not interested. And this is upsetting to him because A, he says he wrote the part for her anyway, and B, it's kind of his last shot at being a film director because, you know, his career's on the decline. He's not as popular as he used to be, and, you know, he needs to do something before he retires and finishes altogether. This traumatizes Nora so much, she won't even read the script. And because he is who he is, Gustav essentially just replaces his daughter with somebody else, with an actress, an American actress. In fact, an actress we all know, and who I referenced Predator Badlands earlier, she's also in that. It's Ellie Fanning, of course. She plays Rachel Kemp. She's a famous American actress in the movie. And because she is who she is, and because she's a star, Netflix agreed to fund Gustav's movie. She's got this desire, this want to be in a sort of independent movie. She spent her whole career being in the big Hollywood blockbustery things, and she wants to sort of focus on a more personal story. So she picks this film, she picks this story from Gustav to be a part of. And because he offered the part to Nora initially, and she turned it down, this is where the conflict grows. We get to see, again, another example of how Gustav treats people who do what he wants to do. Rachel, who is now starring in the film instead of Nora, he treats Rachel with so much respect and with so much empathy and with so much care and kindness and love. You kind of think, well, why isn't he like that with his daughters? Why isn't he like that with his own family, with his own, flesh and blood? And it's such a subtle way of, again, the story telling us that he's not somebody that we should empathise with at all. All right, let's talk a little bit more about sentimental value on our way back home. Let's continue. This is the first film I've seen in 2026, and I am over the moon that I got to see this on the big screen. And one of the things I did to prepare myself for this is I watched the director's previous film called The Worst Person in the World, which also stars Renate Reinsve and is fucking incredible. I mean, it is totally, totally amazing. It's very different than Sentimental Value, though. The Worst Person in the World does not necessarily have the bigness of this film. Sentimental Value focuses on a family's experience and a family's trauma, whereas The Worst Person in the World focuses solely on one character and the way that she navigates herself through a part of her life that she just can't understand. And the name of the movie, The Worst Person in the World, refers to the fact that that's how she feels about herself because she doesn't understand what it is that she wants to do in the world. But she tries to make sense of what she can understand anyway. And that's how the story in The Worst Person in the World comes together. It is a fantastic film. And Renate is so great in it. I mean, she is so fantastic. There are certain scenes in that film that are outrageous. They're handled so well that you just think, oh, okay, fine. All right, whatever. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, is part of, I mentioned this in the intro, the Oslo trilogy, of which I have not seen. Only The Worst Person in the World. That's the only one I've seen. So there's some more homework for me to do later on, is to go and hunt down those other two films in the Oslo trilogy, because if they're anything like The Worst Person in the World, and if they're anything like Sentimental Value, if they're anything as good as them, then I'm in for a treat. There's a really great sequence in this where it kind of spells out what it all means, really. It's a scene where you get this blend of the three characters, of Gustav, of Agnes, and of Nora. The three faces of the character sort of blend together, mold together, if you want to call it that. I've never seen that in a movie before, actually. Maybe it exists in some film I haven't seen, but I've not seen that in a film before. A literal representation of who the father is, and who the sister is, and who the other sister is, in terms of, all being one person with the same outlook. I think the whole film is profound. I think this movie is a profound movie. And as I said before, I think this is one that you can watch many, many times, because it really is a movie that is chock full of meaning and subtext. And also, it's a really good story. It's a really good story. This is a drama through and through. This is a drama about people. And it doesn't matter what language you speak, and it doesn't matter where you're from. It can still speak to you. And Sentimental Value is one of those. So is The Worst Person in the World as well. If you can find that film somewhere, then I say watch that. You've got to watch that. You don't need to watch that in preparation for this. They're not linked in any way at all. But it's also fantastic. Right, in the UK, we have a film classification board called the BBFC, and they give an age rating to each film. Now, before the film starts in the cinema, they have the age rating. The age rating pops up, and in this case, it's rated 15, right? But as well as that, it does have a brief description of some of the themes in the film. It's a little bit of a spoiler. If you don't want to know anything that happens in this film, if you want to kind of go in without the knowledge, because I've not talked about some of the even deeper themes that happen in this film, for sure, do not look at that age rating thingy. Don't do it. Let's sum up Sentimental Value. Sentimental Value is a movie about people. It's a movie about a family, but it's also a movie about a house. Actually, a home. And every element within the story is important to drive everything forwards. Nothing is wasted in this film. And importantly for me, I think a lot of these kind of deep, philosophical, in-depth character studies about people, about things, about whatever, I think they always don't get the ending right. But this is one example where a movie like this absolutely nails its ending. It nails its ending perfectly. But the special thing about this is the villain of the story is also one of the anchors of the story. The villain of the story, I think, is the father. And that's because of who he is and how he sees the world and what he does to the people around him in that world. But like everything in this film, it's not as black and white as that. It's not as simple. The characters are so well drawn. The characters are so well put together. Each facet of everything that they do is complicated and amazing to dissect and study and think about and feel. Sentimental Value is the first film I've seen in 2026, and if every film I see in 2026 is as good as this, then it's going to be the best year of film ever. Let's hold on to that hope, right? But I recommend this film completely, totally. And although you wouldn't consider something like this to be a cinematic movie, it is beautiful to look at. It deserves your time, and it deserves a bit of your money as well. 100% recommended. It's called Sentimental Value, and it's available, well, maybe everywhere, but not for long. So go and see it, go and enjoy it, and I will see you again next time on the Film Podcast. Take care. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026.